kindergarten class vanished on trip until 8 weeks later. A fisherman pulled this up. Imagine this. A bright spring morning, laughter echoing through the air as 15 kindergartners step off a bus, excited for their field trip to Banner's farm. Their teachers are smiling, keeping a watchful eye on the group. It's supposed to be an ordinary day, just another adventure in the school calendar. But what happens next defies explanation. By the end of the day, every single one of those children, along with their 2 teachers, vanishes without a trace. For 8 agonizing weeks, there are no answers, only questions that haunt families and investigators alike. Then, something changes everything. A fisherman pulls up 6 small backpacks from the ocean, each weighted down with rocks. What could these backpacks mean? And why were they dumped into the sea? This isn't just a story about disappearance. It's a tale of mystery, survival, and humanity's darkest corners. At its heart is Dana Rowe, a kindergarten teacher whose life becomes intertwined with tragedy when she finds herself both a witness and, unfairly, a suspect in the case. The weight of guilt presses heavily on her shoulders, not because she did anything wrong, but because she wasn't there when her students disappeared. As we dive deeper into this chilling narrative, you'll meet other key players too. Detective Mark Elwell, who tirelessly works to uncover the truth. Clay Banner, the struggling farmer whose property holds secrets far beyond his understanding. And Daryl Quintero, a man whose motives seem darker than anyone imagined. Together, they form pieces of a puzzle that will take us into shadowy worlds, where innocence meets exploitation. The tone of this story shifts between suspenseful and heartbreaking, mirroring the emotions of those involved. You'll feel the tension rise as clues emerge, one small detail at a time, and you'll share in the grief of parents desperate for answers. This isn't just about solving a crime. It's about exploring how people react under unimaginable pressure. How do you keep searching when all hope seems lost? How do you face accusations while your heart breaks for the ones you couldn't protect? These are the human elements that make this story so compelling. And trust me, once you hear what Dana discovers during her visit back to Banner's farm, you won't be able to look away. As the investigation unfolds, strange details begin to surface. A brightly colored feather found near the barn raises more questions than answers. Receipts hidden and then burned in Daryl's office hint at connections far beyond local farming operations. And then there's the unsettling realization that Coach Tom Reyes' shoes and watch somehow ended up on Daryl's feet and wrist. None of it adds up, yet every new piece of evidence brings Dana closer to danger. When she overhears smugglers discussing the children being held alive somewhere near Corpus Christi, the stakes skyrocket. Suddenly, this isn't just about finding missing backpacks. It's about rescuing kids who may still be alive, even if 2 have already paid the ultimate price. Throughout this journey, themes of innocence, greed, and justice come sharply into focus. The contrast between the pure joy of childhood and the calculated cruelty of criminals leaves a lasting impact. We see how desperation can drive people to unthinkable acts. Whether it's Clay Banner agreeing to let smugglers use his land, or Victor Quintana building a billion-dollar empire on the backs of endangered animals. And now, children, yet amidst the darkness, there's also resilience. Dana refuses to give up, even when everyone else doubts her. Parents cling to hope despite overwhelming odds. And eventually, law enforcement uncovers enough evidence to stage a daring rescue operation. But here's the thing, not everyone makes it out unscathed. 2 precious lives are already gone, and the scars left behind run deep. For the survivors, for their families, and yes, even for Dana herself. Now let's talk about why this story matters. Beyond the twists and turns lies a stark reminder of real-world issues like wildlife trafficking and human smuggling. These aren't fictional crimes dreamed up for dramatic effect. They happen every day, often hidden in plain sight. Through Dana's eyes, we glimpse the devastating consequences of such networks, where profit outweighs sake morality. Exotics, animals sedated and crammed into crates, become symbols of a larger problem, one that extends to vulnerable humans caught in similar traps. By weaving these realities into the fabric of the plot, the story forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about our world and ourselves. But perhaps the most gripping aspect of all is the unresolved tension lingering beneath the surface. Yes, the children are found, at least most of them. But what happens next? How does a community heal after such trauma? Can Dana ever forgive herself for not being there when her students needed her most? And what about the smugglers? While some are arrested, others remain at large, their plans thwarted but not entirely dismantled. As the final scene fades to black, leaving Dana standing outside the police station, watching reunited families walk away, you're left wondering, is this really over? Or is it just the beginning of something much bigger? So, if you're ready to follow Dana down a path filled with danger, discovery, and determination, stick around, because this is more than just a story. It's a testament to the strength of the human spirit and the lengths we'll go to protect what matters most. In the next part, we'll delve deeper into the events leading up to the fateful field trip, uncovering shocking revelations that will change everything you thought you knew. Until then, ask yourself this: if you were Dana, would you have stopped looking, or would you have risked everything to find the truth? As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over Matagorda Bay, Dana Rowe found herself replaying the events of the day in her mind. The discovery of the backpacks had shaken her to her core, but it was the feather, bright, exotic, and out of place, that gnawed at her thoughts. It wasn't just a random object. It felt like a clue, begging to be understood. Her instincts told her there was more beneath the surface of Banner's farm than anyone had considered. And then there was Daryl Quintero. The way he'd watched her with those cold, calculating eyes after she mentioned the feather made her skin crawl. Something about him didn't add up. Why would a farmhand wear Coach Tom's shoes? Why did his watch seem so familiar? Each unanswered question pulled her deeper into the mystery, even as fear whispered that she might not like what she'd uncover. The next morning, Detective Elwell and his team arrived at the farm, their presence lending an air of urgency to the investigation. Officers spread out across the property, combing through every corner for evidence. Dana stayed close, her movements deliberate yet cautious. She couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. When Daryl approached her near the barn, his tone polite but laced with tension, she forced a smile. "Morning," he said, his gaze flickering toward the detectives. "You're back early." His words hung in the air like a challenge. Dana nodded stiffly, refusing to let him see her unease. "Just helping where I can," she replied, though her fingers tightened around the strap of her bag. Inside, she kept the receipt she'd taken from his office, a piece of the puzzle she knew could implicate him. Meanwhile, Detective Elwell focused on piecing together the timeline. He questioned Clay Banner again, pressing him about the smuggling operation. Banner, visibly shaken, admitted to allowing vehicles to use the remote road behind the cornfield in exchange for payments. "I thought they were moving livestock," he insisted, his voice cracking. "I didn't know anything about animals." Or worse. But when asked about Daryl's role, Banner hesitated, guilt flashing across his weathered face. Elwell noted the hesitation, filing it away as another thread to pull. Back at the station, forensic teams worked tirelessly to analyze the backpacks and other recovered items. Every stitch of fabric, every grain of sand trapped inside, held potential answers. Yet despite the flurry of activity, no one could ignore the growing sense of dread. 6 backpacks had been found. But where were the rest? What did the smugglers hope to achieve by dumping them now? Dana's resolve hardened as she pieced together fragments of information. During a quiet moment, she pulled Detective Elwell aside. "There's something you need to know," she began, lowering her voice. She recounted everything: the strange feather, the suspicious behavior of Daryl, and most importantly, the receipt linking a livestock delivery to Corpus Christi. Elwell listened intently, his expression darkening with each detail. "This changes things," he murmured, glancing toward Daryl, who stood talking to another farmhand. "If these people are involved in smuggling, we're dealing with something far bigger than a missing class." He ordered surveillance on Daryl and instructed officers to dig deeper into Victor Quintana's operations. For the first time since the case began, Dana felt a spark of hope. They were getting closer, but the closer they got, the more dangerous it became. That evening, as Dana prepared to leave the farm, Daryl intercepted her. His demeanor had shifted from guarded to menacing. "You've been asking a lot of questions," he said, his voice low and steady. "Maybe too many." Dana's heart raced, but she met his gaze head on. "I'm just trying to find my students," she shot back, her voice trembling only slightly. Daryl smirked, leaning closer. "Be careful what you wish for, Mrs. Rao. Not everything is as it seems." The threat lingered in the air long after he walked away, leaving Dana shaken but determined. She realized then that Duruas Dana stood outside the police station. The weight of everything she'd been through pressed down on her. The sun was rising, painting the sky in soft hues of orange and pink, but she couldn't fully appreciate it. Her mind kept replaying the events that had led them here. The discovery of the backpacks, the feather, Daryl's watch, and finally the horrifying truth about what happened to her students. Though 13 children were safe now, the loss of Jalen and Mila haunted her. She felt responsible for not being there when they needed her most. As parents hugged their kids tightly inside, some casting grateful glances at her, while others still regarded her with suspicion, Dana knew healing would take time, for everyone. Detective Elwell approached her, his expression softer than usual. "You did good, Dana," he said quietly. "More than good. Without your persistence, those kids might still be out there." He handed her a folder. Inside were updates from the ongoing investigation. Victor Quintana's smuggling empire dismantled, several key members arrested, and evidence mounting against Daryl Quintero and Clay Banner. "It's far from over," Elwell admitted, "but we've made progress. And because of you, we can give these families something they thought they'd lost forever: hope." Dana nodded, though her thoughts were elsewhere. Despite the relief of finding the survivors, guilt gnawed at her. She wondered if she could have done more to prevent this catastrophe altogether. Had she stayed closer to the group during the field trip? Could she have noticed the smugglers sooner? Detective Elwell seemed to sense her turmoil. "Don't carry this alone," he advised gently. "You're human. You did everything you could, and then some. Now let yourself rest." Inside, social workers and counselors worked tirelessly to support the traumatized children and their families. Some kids clung to their parents, as if afraid they'd disappear again, while others sat silently, staring into space. Dana moved among them, offering comfort where she could. One little girl, Emma Lou, tugged on her sleeve. Ms. Rowe," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "They told us no one was coming. They said we'd never see our families again." Dana knelt beside her, pulling her into a tight hug. "They were wrong," she murmured. "You're home now, safe. Nothing will ever take you away again." The days that followed brought both closure and lingering pain. Funerals were held for Jalen and Mila, attended by the entire school community. Their tiny coffins, adorned with flowers and stuffed animals, broke hearts across Greenhorn Hills. Parents of the surviving children struggled to adjust, torn between joy and fear. Therapy sessions became a regular part of life for many families, helping them process the trauma. Together, meanwhile, prosecutors prepared cases against Victor Quintana, Daryl Quintero, and even Clay Banner, whose cooperation earned him slightly reduced charges. But not forgiveness. For Dana, returning to teaching wasn't easy. Rumors about her involvement in the case had spread quickly, and though most people eventually came around, some parents refused to trust her again. The school board offered her a position organizing educational programs rather than classroom teaching, which she accepted. It wasn't ideal, but it allowed her to stay connected to the children who meant so much to her. Slowly, she began rebuilding her life, leaning on friends, colleagues, and the gratitude of families who credited her with saving their loved ones. Months later, Dana received an unexpected visitor at her apartment, Alvin Torres, accompanied by his mother. Alvin carried a handmade card covered in colorful drawings and glitter. "We made this for you," he said shyly, handing it to her. Inside the words, "Thank you for finding us," were scrawled in uneven letters. Surrounded by stick figure drawings of Dana leading the class back home. Tears filled her eyes as she hugged him tightly. For the first time since the ordeal began, she felt a flicker of peace, not absolution, but acceptance. The case continued to make headlines nationwide, shining a spotlight on exotic animal trafficking and child exploitation networks. Law enforcement agencies vowed to step up patrols and increase penalties for such crimes. In interviews, Detective Elwell praised Dana's courage and determination, calling her actions instrumental in cracking open one of the largest smuggling operations in recent history. While Dana avoided the media herself, she found solace knowing her efforts had sparked change. As time passed, Dana often visited the memorial erected for Jalen and Mila at Greenhorn Hills Elementary. She'd sit on the bench nearby, watching students play, their laughter echoing through the air. It reminded her why she'd fought so hard to protect innocence, preserve hope, and ensure that tragedies like this wouldn't happen again. Though scars remained, both visible and invisible, she chose to focus on the resilience of the human spirit. Life, she realized, wasn't defined by the darkness we endure, but by how we emerge from it. One evening, as she walked along Matagorda Bay, Dana paused to watch the sunset. The ocean stretched endlessly before her, calm and serene. Somewhere deep down, she felt the presence of her missing students, not as ghosts, but as reminders of love, strength, and purpose. She pulled the exotic feather from her pocket, running her fingers over its vibrant colors. It symbolized so much: danger, discovery, survival. Carefully, she released it into the breeze, letting it drift toward the horizon. "You're free now," she whispered, closing her eyes. "All of you." And for the first time in months, she smiled. A quiet, bittersweet smile that carried the promise of healing.